Good morning, everybody, and a warm welcome to our first postgraduate career success workshop for this series for 2023. My name is Rebecca Browne. I am absolutely delighted to be here. We've actually just started a beautiful impromptu conversation, which I've just asked permission from one of the students here to share the discussion that we were having before I popped the recording on, because I think that it will be relevant to many of you. So we might, and do you mind just asking the question again?
I was just saying that I'm finding that the networking comes quite easily to me and talking to people on a chatting sort of level, but trying to bring that conversation into a more professional level and or sort of career base where I'm trying to ask for the next step. So what comes next from an employment point of view, and how do I have those conversations with potential employers and or people who know people and have some sort of influence in certain areas? How do I have that conversation and push my skills and my I guess myself forward as a potential new employee?
Yeah, and so there's a lot to unpack with that. So a couple of things come to mind. The first thing about networking is actually helping other people. And so people love to help other people. And so what you can do, and people flattery, it sounds a bit trite, and as long as you do it in a really genuine way, people love flattery. And so what one really helpful tool is to say, you know, I'm so curious, and so you're curious to learn how you did X, Y, Z. How did and so keep turning it back onto them about what would you suggest that I do? Is there somebody that you'd suggest that I talk to? What do you think has been, you know, without sounding like you're interviewing them, but showing that because what often happens, and it's normal, is that we go to a party or we go to a networking event or we go, you know, like a conference, and we feel really self-conscious. And we feel like everyone's looking at us, yeah. And so if we can, and everybody else is probably feeling, even those people, yeah, the imposter syndrome, even, you know, the CEO and all the rest of it, they're like, oh my God, because it's human nature that we don't feel good enough, yeah. And so and I'm not saying everybody feels like that, but it's the human experience to feel, you know, to have that sense of imposter. So people showing that genuine interest and that genuine curiosity in others actually positions yourself in their mind more positively. Rather than, and it's a wonderful way to kind of shift that energy of like, what do they think of me, rather than how can I help this person, you know, almost like helping them feel good about themselves, yeah, in that exchange. And then what you'll find is eventually they'll start to, because people naturally, for the most part, like to talk about themselves, all right? And so if you ask them questions about themselves, then most people, unless they're, you know, enormously narcissistic, will eventually start to ask you about you, yeah. And then they'll say, and that's a way to just really shift that feeling of like, I want to be positive in their eyes and get them to help me, but it's a way to do it without kind of going, well, then what should I do next? And what should I do next? What should I do next? Is asking them for suggestions. What would you do? How would you go? Or almost like they're some sort of mentor and guide. Then one of the other things that you asked me about was, or whether it was about that, what happens afterwards. And so the afterwards, so I just had a really beautiful experience. I do a little and this isn't necessarily to talk about what, but I do a little bit of pro bono stuff with previous students. And somebody that I've been working with for a long time, immediately, we just finished the session before I came, immediately after that, he just sent me this little message and just said, thank you so, it's those little, thank you so much, da, 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 those little tiny touch points. And that's what made me think of it. After you've met them at that networking event, conference, or whatever, is to then really quickly, while that experience, so within a day or two, is that you write to them and you say, it was so lovely to meet you. I really appreciated that, da, 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 da. So acknowledge them again. And then you've almost, but if you have done that, you've then almost got yourself a nice little, in your LinkedIn bundle, you've got a relationship. Because what you'll find, and we'll talk more, I'm going to do LinkedIn in a couple of weeks' time, but what you'll find is, as your LinkedIn builds, is that it's probably a bit like your Facebook, that you've got all these people that, that you don't, they're just kind of there, but then you've got your core. And just by having that experience of meeting that person at the conference and then following up with them, they sort of sit in your bundle of LinkedIn networks, almost in a separate little bundle, and that person will perceive you in that little, that not necessarily, even if they're above you or whatever, wherever they are positioned, they will perceive you as a closer contact than if you're just this person in your suite of Facebook people.
So Beth, would you suggest contacting them via LinkedIn or via, message or email or what have you? Like, because some of the email, like some addresses were given, business cards had their email addresses on them. So which is a better way to go?
Yeah, perfect. Great questions. So what I would suggest doing is you come back from that conference, depending on, there's two different ways that you could go. I would probably suggest, in the past, what you do is you go home and you send them an email and you say, great to meet you, da, 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 da. People, professionals will mostly these days, depending on what sort of profession they're in, but they'll have the link, they'll have a LinkedIn app. And so if you pretty soon after that ask to connect with them on LinkedIn, then they will go, oh, lovely, I've just met, just met this person. Yeah, great. And then connect. Then immediately after they connect with you, then you say to them, thank you so much for connecting. And then you say, really appreciate your time. It was wonderful, da, 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 da. If you want, and I'd probably leave it at that. You don't want to ask them another question or whatever. But what I would suggest is that in maybe a couple of months' time, like not too soon, you don't want to be annoying. And it's a bit of like a delicate balancing act, but then reach out to them again in a few, depending on what their role is, where they fit. Yeah. And then, ask them, perhaps you could, or share something with them, or find another reason to connect with them. Then if there's an opportunity you happen to, I was actually just talking to somebody about this today, is that if there's a chance that you can almost pretend to be somewhere near them. So in terms of physically, and when I say pretend, you've got to go up to Byron Bay or down to Byron Bay for a reason. This applies to everybody. Then you'll say, oh, I'm going to be in Byron on, da, da, da. Or you can even in that next touch point say to them, it's great to see you. I'm going to be in Byron and give it time. Yeah. In a couple of months' time, love to catch up with you. Then when you get to Byron, you catch up with them, or wherever it is, Bellington, wherever it is, and then off you go, depending on how much you really want to build that relationship. And then so you can do variations of all of that in terms of how much energy. I wouldn't go, as I said, there's a balance between you want to think about how much of value you then become to them. It sounds a bit annoying, So, but you can do that same process multiple times as you build, and then as your and I'll do all this in your LinkedIn, your profile and time will go that it will build, and then more. It's sort of like a, you know, it's a bit like influencers or whatever. The more you have, the more people, you know. Does that make sense? Does that help? So thank you for everyone allowing me to. Was there any other parts to that I haven't addressed? Because it's although it's personal to your circumstances, this absolutely applies to career success, because the latest figure that we had is 80% of jobs are not advertised. And so for those of you like Julia, your profession, Roy, your profession, slightly less so for yours, Tanya, is that I cannot express to you enough about the value of networking. And in this huge article that I read, it was in City Morning Herald yesterday, is that it was talking about older people and transitioning out of roles and that whole landscape around age and ageism. And they said that one of the most excruciating thing for people to do when they are a little bit older is to actually make contact, is to network. And we all know that, but actually it's 10 times faster and more successful than sitting in. But what we want to do is we want to have a passive approach where we lie in our beds, we go like this: there's no jobs, I'm never going to find a job. Yeah, and we've all done it. And it's just easy, because then you can play this story: there's no jobs in my field, I'm never going to get a job, I'm too old, I'm too fat, too whatever it is. We all have different stories about what it is, and just about every person that has come to me over the years with something to do with their career, it might be that they're 18, they're 35, they haven't worked. There is something to do with their career that is almost their thing, that a story of it that you play over and over again. And I was thinking about this, and I'm going to kick off into the slides in a minute. I was thinking about this in the context of somebody that I know who has had a number of interviews recently and is an amazing professional, and they would be lucky, and the person has got another role, but you know, there's redundancies, there's changes going on there, recently got another role, but has in this period of time been to a number of interviews, got this other role, things are changing, wants to get this other role. But what I've observed is and when this person goes for these particular roles, there's a story that is partly truthful around something that comes up for her in this interview every time, right? You don't have this, right? But what I'm observing now is that every time she goes into an interview, that seems to, it's like you're looking for a red car. I'm going to carry that red car into that interview, and then they're going to see my red car, and then that's going to remind you and me and all of us that I don't have the red car. And so it's almost, I'm observing, and the thing is, and I was just looking at it from a distance and wondering if we could just pull that red car out, how if she, and I'm not saying that it's something that she is doing wrong, it's something it's tender, it's a tender touch point for her, because our careers are tender, yeah, that they're our cars, our homes, our friends, our community, yeah, and so we all have them, and so it's just so when we know what that is, what that story is that we're carrying, then it's how we don't take that with us, yeah. Because what happens is they don't know yet that you don't have this XYZ, but we go in going, they're going to find out, yeah. They're going to find out I'm a mum with 3 kids and you know, I've had 2 years out of work or whatever it is, yeah. And they're going to find out, and I'm just waiting for them to find out. All right. So
should you be on the front foot in a way? Do you get the elephant out of the room?
Yeah, good question.
To make you relax more?
You know what? If you're, it's about connection, essentially. And people employ people that they like, that they see will fit into their team, even if they don't think that person has all of the skills, right? People employ people they like. So if you can build that trust and rapport quickly enough to then say, you know, and you've got that lovely rapport going on, you say, you know, I know you're going to ask me. And they'll be totally taken off guard. They'll be like, oh, okay, right. And you know what? And then from there on, yeah, if you feel comfortable and you feel, you don't want to kind of, draw attention to something that they were never going to talk about.
Yeah.
If it will help you build that rapport, absolutely, because it is essentially about building. They employ people that they like. That's what we know, and they also. And I'm going to get to the boring. The slides aren't boring, but there's lots of great stuff in there. Is that they employ enthusiasm, and that might seem like a really trite, like a really kind of. But I've had this example of this healthcare employer. She used to come onto campus, and then a different staff member came from that same organisation, and they repeated the same thing, and I was like, okay. So what happens is that people forget they're trying to be perfect. Yeah. And they're trying to say everything right and impress this person. Meanwhile, they're forgetting to connect with a human being there and to build that. And that's what we do in our working lives. We build trust, we build relationships, we build teams, we solve problems together. And we make decisions together. And so when they kept repeating this thing to me, I was thinking, well, isn't that obvious? And in fact, it's not so obvious, because we're trying to be perfect.
So seeing more human is actually a strength.
Absolutely. And being authentic.
Okay.
So you be memorable as an expression that says be memorable for the right reasons. And so and that's for your optimism and your enthusiasm for the role and your willingness to dive in there, your willingness to learn, your curiosity about the role, the curiosity about their team, curiosity about their successes, and that you communicate that. And then also that you again, it's like that networking about how you can contribute to that success. So it's about contribution, which is really kind of current in the whole coaching, leadership, all in that space around research and career is around meaningful, purpose-driven careers, and how that exists in terms of well-being and longevity and success of human beings and organizations. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Yep. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Can I ask one question about being memorable and that?
Yes.
So I've just looked into a job application in academia, and then the job posting said, well, you can send your application to that and that assistant, but if you have more questions, contact the professor. So I've sent away my application to that assistant, but didn't get any kind of a confirmation that they actually got it. So I'm just super going nervous about, maybe it's in their spam folder or something, which most likely they're looking for those emails anyway. But so I'm just wondering, should I also contact the professor and think of some kind of questions I could ask, or would that actually just be a negative kind of impression?
No, and that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. If they have actually said, here's the person to talk to, then you have an opportunity to build that relationship and build your professional and personal identity with that potential employer before you even get into the interview and before he even reads your application. So I was going to say that you could, but perhaps the next time, there's a bit of a LinkedIn theme here, isn't there? Is the next time, so you say this, if this does, I'm sure this work, but if it doesn't work, is knowing, okay, you obviously know, which is great, sounds like you already sort of know where you're heading with all this, go onto LinkedIn and find as many of those people beforehand, right? And then you send them an email that says, you send them when you ask to connect, you know, I love to, you know, I've been following your career, or something again flatters them, just something brief as you ask for that connection. And of course, your LinkedIn title will have all those keywords that professor, that very specific line of work will be in the top of your thing. So when you pop up and they're like, who's Julia? They immediately go, well, Julia wants to connect because she does, you know, soil and I do soil, and yeah. And then so that when the next time comes around and they say Professor someone or other, you've already met the professor indirectly on LinkedIn, and you can have that conversation even more smoothly because you're already primed and positioned. And it's a great question for when you've got a very specific line of work, area of interest and speciality, is that in some ways it's harder, in some ways it's easier, because it's harder because there's a smaller pool. It's easier in that you've got less people to compete against, and you can raise your profile more quickly with a smaller pool. Does that make sense? So I would absolutely talk to the professor. If there's an opportunity to talk to the professor on the phone, I would take that opportunity. If that feels, and again, I'm kind of can't see the whole sort of process of it, your instinct to ask questions, absolutely. But also think very, you could even get the careers team to have a look at a draft. You could draft an email that, think about the tone and the language that you use in that email, and showing that, like, I am super duper pumped to have this chance to perhaps chat to you about da 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 da. And super pumped sounds a bit, you know, like a teenager, but you know what I mean, yeah.
That's what I was going to ask you.
So
you don't want to ask the silly question, but you don't want to ask the why are you asking me this question, because then you look needy. Like, what is the question that Julia should be asking
yeah,
me?
Great. Yeah.
That's complex in itself.
Okay. So I think again, is genuineness is so thinking, try to approach it from the, what would you really, because also email exchange these days has a power into itself, because, you know, people are isolated, so people can read a lot into email, you know. Okay, sometimes we get it wrong, but people are more isolated than they once were. So the power of words. So I would suggest, Julia, is to think about what you would really genuinely like to know, because then that will, you'll be able to write it much more naturally. So, and then of course, like, I mean, keep away from the obvious things around, you know, promotion, salary, you know, travel overseas, all those things. But think about what, you know, obviously there's a reason that you've applied for this position. Think about what you would genuinely like to know about that role, because then that will be perceived probably positively, because it's going, and again, because you have such a specialized field, you will be able to demonstrate. So yeah, I think the genuineness of that engagement, people can feel that rather than the sort of like pretend. And also is to follow up and follow through. So what I find happens these days, somebody described communication these days, and I thought, oh wow, it has become like that, where it's not an exchange anymore. It's a like, can I just get something? Like, so that people will only communicate to get something, rather than to have a reciprocal kind of commune. It's transactional. That's what communication is now. It's transactional, isn't it? And so when you it's about finding that line between making it kind of a collaboration rather than just a transaction. You will get this for me, and then I won't communicate after that. I won't say thank you, or you know what I mean? Does that make sense? So approach it really genuinely with some of those basic core values of kindness and respect and curiosity, and because also, you know, older people that, you know, I'm not assuming because he's a professor, but, you know, anybody, that there's just different styles of communication. So keeping a more formal, then you'll cover off all different age groups as well in terms of people's preferences for how to engage. Does that make sense? So it's safer to keep a slightly more formal. It's not slight. You don't have to be dear sir, but still, you know, be formal, engaging, friendly, curious, and genuine about how you communicate. Does that help?
So would Julia use some professional terms to let the person know that she knows the things that whomever this professor is? I don't know your area, Julia, got no idea, but you know what I'm saying? Like, there must be some key kind of words that only you guys use compared to other people.
Absolutely.
Putting those kind of things in?
Yes, sure. But also, again, I think you don't want to overdo it in the, you know, like a whole bunch of lingo, and then you miss that chance to connect. But yeah, great point. I mean, all of that lingo is going to come into that application anyway. But certainly, yes, I mean, you will have very specific, and that's a great point actually. And then I will get into the slides, is that many years ago, I remember this young graduate, I've never forgotten it, young graduate, and he wanted to get into New South Wales fisheries. And I don't know if he just naturally knew how to do it, or if he had friends in there, or but what he hadn't, as far as I recall, he hadn't actually worked for New South Wales fisheries. But what he and the reason it comes to mind is my brother's in New South Wales fisheries, so I knew the language anyway. But what was fascinating was that you're doing OT, you've got your language. You're doing education, you've got your language. Career development, you've got your language. Roy, what's you're doing? Oh, health. Yeah. You know, you've got best practice, and you've got, you know, person-centered approach, and all, you know, those. And so what this guy did, I mean, it should be obvious, and people should be doing it every day of the week, but he just did the most brilliant job. And he added this photograph of him. And normally, you know, you wouldn't add a photograph, and people ask me about photographs all the time, but he showed this photograph of him like he would look like if he was out on site working for New South Wales fisheries with all of his lingo, and off he went, nailed it. And so that professional language that you use is so important, because it just as you asked, that's a great question, thank you, Tanya, that it absolutely relates, and it demonstrates that professionalism, and also your knowledge of, you know, of your field. Roy, what area of health are you studying with your PhD? Oh, I ducked away. All right, I'm going to pop. Was that helpful? I love that. So jump in while given that we're having we've got we'll have a little break just before 10, but we've got 2 hours, and it is covering all of this stuff. So it's not inappropriate for us to be sort of, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, because my slides are around you know, what success is, learning about yourself, the application process, etc., etc. So I'm going to dive.
Sorry, I keep interrupting you, but just regarding applications, is it kind of normal to not get a reply unless they invite you for an interview?
Yeah, good question. So great question. So how did you where did you apply?
So I applied via email. So the posting said to send an email. So I sent a personal email from my email account.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great. So in that case, it's actually slightly different. So how long ago did you send it?
1 week.
Okay. So I would wait another 3 days, and then I would write to that person and just say, again, think about the language. But did you say you got some reply about the professor bit?
Oh, that was in the job posting itself,
Oh,
saying that you can contact them if you have questions, and if not, just send your application to the other person. And the thing is that the application time, like, it also closes today. So I'm like, oh, wait. I mean, yeah, I'm just not sure. Do I contact them or do I just trust the process? Because I don't want to seem too anxious, and like, that could also be a negative thing.
Well, yes and no. You don't want to. What I would do is I'd still just, even though the applications close, I think that they would still accept another, because you could always send them the copy of the original copy. So I'd trust that it has gone, because if it's gone to an email and they've had 20 applications, this is something that, the world has changed, and there are different organizations have different policies. It's always lovely when you get a reply, like it just, even for, but unfortunately, because we are in a transactional relationship, they're not going to talk to you until they need to do that transaction back. So on the one hand, you can assume that it's gone, right? And then on the other hand, it can actually raise your profile by, touching base again, but it can also be annoying. So I would suggest that on Monday, you just say that, I sent my application, and then just something really lovely and gentle. Love to know it, just wanting to double check that it's been received accordingly. If you'd like any further info, and then say something like, I'm looking forward to having a chat to, or I will touch base to us, so you can almost even demonstrate that willingness to, I will be talking to Professor so-and-so, and that could almost be like cheeky, not cheeky in a rude way, but again, it's how you frame it, that, or you could even say, I've already contacted. What you could do is contact him before that, and then say, I've reached out to ask more questions about the role. Yeah, that's
why I thought I could just contact the professor, and then if they say, oh, actually, I've never heard about your name, then it's like, oh, well, maybe they didn't get the application, and we could follow up on that, basically.
It depends on what the recruitment process is, because they may do an original culling, and so and so I would still be inclined to, because it's email, you can imagine if it's not via email, then they've got up. Because it's via email, it's actually, you've got a lot more it's very rare, well, not rare, but it's a lot more rare these days to actually have an opportunity to send an application via email. And I'll talk about that because what happens is, when you're sending it through Seek or Indeed or whatever, there's automation, and the automation will decide based on the words that you've used whether they like you or not. So at least your application, when it's being sent by an email, unless they're going to put it through another system, but if it would have gone through a system already. So universities, even if it was a university, for example, and even if it was their own, it would go through a portal. But if it's actually gone to a human being, and that's that's why I get so excited to be here, because the automation is, it's a whole, and now with AI, we've got a whole new world happening. So so I would absolutely follow up and absolutely talk to the professor. Yes, and find something related to, specifically to the nature of the role, like something they, that you guys talk about. Will we, would the role include researching because I love or I've been involved in, you can almost use it as a chance to kind of tell them how fabulous you are in the same breath, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? I made it
Yeah,
more.
yeah, sorry, I was still muted. I forgot. Yeah, that was, thank you.
I made it a bit more complicated for you, but
No,
I
that's
think
all helpful. Yeah, that's good.
you've got a more of an opportunity there because there is human beings involved. So any chance to get to a person before a machine are amazing, and I will talk about that. All right, here we go. Please feel free to stop me anytime along the way. So this session today is really what we're talking about in terms of the top tips across the employment process and all of the other stages in between and around about. So this workshop is brought to you by the beautiful Postgraduate Association and my colleagues there. You may have come across the team there. If you haven't met them, please take the chance to meet them at the Gold Coast or at Lismore. We also run these series in conjunction with the also beautiful SCU Careers team. Now, SCU, if you haven't come across SCU Careers team, the Postgraduate Association, you know, they run their workshops and they have other workshops and things that they provide for you. The SCU Careers team do what I am doing here, but they're doing it right throughout the year, and they have campus career consultants that are on campus Monday to Friday, and you can get appointments with them. Sorry, my internet just dropped for a sec. You can get appointments with them really quickly. They've got a big team. You can have a consultation on some of the things that we're talking about today in terms of the application process. You can have a written review. You can practice, say, for example, Julia gets an interview and she wants to practice her interview techniques. She can do a mock interview with them. They have also a range of resources. They have job vacancies, etc., etc. So if you haven't come across the team, they are, what we find is, I guess, you know, when you're studying and so many of our postgraduate students are just juggling a lot of other responsibilities. And also you get lots and lots of emails. But when, particularly for Tanya and Julia, because you're at that pointy end of your time here at SCU, they will be helpful for you really, really soon. What I do with the Postgraduate Association is at the end of each series. So, but I'm happy to do if anybody needs my help before then, is that I offer. You get complimentary for anybody that wants to. In fact, I'll put it in the chat box there. Anybody, because this might be relevant for, is complimentary career consultations as part of the Postgraduate Association offering. As I said, I'm a consultant here, but they do allow me, whilst I'm running these workshops, to offer some additional assistance, one-on-one assistance. I normally do them at the end of the 4-week series, but if anybody's listening or anybody that's here wants some time with me earlier, please feel free. I send an email at the end of the 4-week series, just offering times, but certainly happy to meet with anybody in the short term. After that, we will, I was saying to the others that are in class here, this year we've just locked in a 4-week block with our primary series of workshops around interviews, LinkedIn, all the main things. We will be back, myself and Alison and Susie, we will be back. That's Alison from Postgraduate Association and Susie from the careers team. It's me that it's my face that you'll see, but the others are absolutely there and behind the scenes, is that we will be back throughout the year. And so at the end of each 4 week, there'll be another 4-week block later on in the year. And then usually we do another one around October, November. I was saying to the girls and that are in the session today that we experimented with a few different sessions over the time. Over last year, we've run some PhD specific ones, a disability employment one, international students, part-time work. So please feel free to reach out to myself or SU Careers or probably the Postgraduate Association is better if there's something that you would particularly like us to spend more time on, because if you feel that way, no doubt somebody else will also be wanting more of something. So that is just a little intro. So we've actually been talking a lot here this morning with Roy and Tanya and Julia in here about I was talking about being memorable for the right reasons. And once you learn more as a part of this process of transitioning from being a student, and you might be in a sort of a hybrid situation at the moment, you've got a part-time job, or you might even already been with the organisation that you'd like to be spending more time with in a different role. It starts with actually self-awareness. And I was saying to those that are in the class that live here is that I was recently, most of our students are, not had some other employment work. So most, because you have to have done some sort of undergraduate degree. And I was just reading. I wish I could have. It's a really big article, though. I don't know if everybody would want to read it. But I was reading this very interesting article yesterday about, people transitioning as they get older in their careers. And the thing, it reminded me of things that I observe, and we've touched on this already earlier in this session, is that in this article, it really reminded me, and they highlighted what happens to people is that we lose, and it's normal, we lose confidence. And it's actually that it's not that you don't, you finish your PhD and you have studied and you have worked so hard. And then you may lose your confidence around perhaps that you haven't been working during that time, and that you've, I've heard people say, oh, that I'm just doing a PhD. And so we forget the value of all the things. I mean, just to be a postgraduate student, you have had to, and many of our postgraduate students are international students. You've already had to demonstrate in order to achieve what you already have, so much resilience. And just as an example of one employability skill. So as you go through this process of applying for positions, it's actually highlighting your uniqueness and your individuality, and the things that make you who you are, and connecting that to what also the employer is saying. So with this example, this is actually a true story of this gentleman that he just applied for hundreds and hundreds of jobs, and he didn't tailor his application. And again, in this article that I was reading, this person said, that they'd applied for 87 positions, and then the career specialist said to them, oh, so did you tailor your resume and your application according to the role? And the lady said, oh, and the person just looked at them blankly. So that's what I'm going to teach you over these next coming weeks is about, and it's gotten a little, actually not a little, it has gotten more complicated and challenging because of automation. But as I was saying I'll always try to balance things out, is that there are some wonderful tools that can help you with learning how to work with automation. And the first one I'm going to give you, in fact, just in case you come to this session and I don't see you again, here's one of my, I haven't used it really recently, it was only a couple of months ago, but just in case something has changed, because I think systems and you know, free offerings and all these things, I probably should have checked it before I came in here. There is a I'll get the link actually. It's just, there is a free, and I put that in inverted commas because you can, well, up until the last time I used it, resume worded. You can put your resume into, and I don't have any affiliation, anything that I talk about, I have no affiliation with any of these businesses. Yeah, there it is, resume worded. You can put your resume in there. I think when I was playing around, it was over 10 times for free. Now, why would you put your resume when you're applying for, why would you put it through there? You put it through there because it will, in less than a minute, it will do what someone like myself or someone in the careers team will do for you as a human being. It will do for you what the computers will do when they're assessing the quality of your resume. So I'll come back to talking about all of that. It's an amazing tool. So what it does is it tells you where you need to improve in terms of the how powerful the words are that you use, how much evidence there is around. So for example, it really pushes you to put metrics in there, like, you know, so you increase the business by how much, X percentage. So it'll force you to put some metrics in there. It can be a really, how will I put it? I was going to say frustrating process, but it's much better to be frustrated putting it through this machine, and it gives you a percentage. So, and so don't be alarmed if you put your resume in there. I've had, I've shared it with lots of colleagues and things, and people like, you know, people in senior positions and even career consultants have put their resumes in there and got 50%. And so it's an incredible tool to see what a computer thinks of your resume, and because we're in the landscape of automation. So
Beck, it just gives you feedback straight away on areas you can improve.
Yep. And then, because unless they've changed again, I'd get onto it soon in case they then charge you. They'd probably everyone else that's ever used it shared it with everybody else, and they're like, so you can pay a premium. You can actually get your resume, or certainly the last time I played around in it, which wasn't very long ago, say like a couple of months ago, you could put it in there and you could get your resume up to 85%. Now, if you get your resume up to 85% on that machine, you have got yourself a cracking resume. It's annoying, but because you go in and you're like, oh God, it still doesn't like that and that and that. But if you go in and you keep doing that, it's much better being annoyed at that than sitting at home for the next 6 months, sending out your resume that you've worked beautifully on, and you haven't got a machine to look at it. You've got the SCU Careers to look at it. There's a few of these machines around. Another one that's just come to mind where you can get some automation, and I'd suggest both. Get everybody and every, but definitely get a machine. Career one. With the Career One, the last time I looked at this one, you can get both a computer and a human being for free to Career1 to look at your career1.com. These guys have been around. They're sort of like back in the day, and I say back in the day, it wasn't that long ago, but Seek and Career1 were kind of competing together. Career1, you don't see it around as much. Career1, they both started around the same time in terms of online applications and things. Now that one, you can get a human being and a computer to look at your resume, but also the SEU's team. What I would suggest is I would go the automation path. Oh, sure. Oh, no worries. Oh, that's fine. I just love that you're here. That's absolutely fine. No problem at all. Definitely use both. All right. So off on a few tangents today, but please feel free just to jump in wherever you like. I mean, it all feeds into one another. So when you're putting your application together, you're going to be presenting yourself on paper, and the reason you want to tailor that application and put your resume through the machine is because if you're different in Julia's case, which is fabulous that she just had, whenever you have an opportunity to email your application to somebody, I'm going to run a whole workshop on cover letters and resumes. But anytime that you have an opportunity to email it, you've got the stakes are a lot better for you because of some things that I will come to. So, in preparing yourself for the world of work and for your employment process, and before you get out there, the more that you can know about and get really clear without sounding like a complete hippie, but I'm actually pretty excited because there is a lot more research, some really interesting research in all of these areas. There's some in terms of work well-being, there's been lots of research into motivation, but personalities and how personalities work. But the more that you can know about your personality, your preferences, how you like to learn, how you process information, do you prefer to work in the morning, when do you perform best, what are your skills, what skills do you need to develop to achieve your goals, what are your goals? Where are you heading? I've got a really fun little activity that we do in a professional development unit to help you do a little goal setting activity. We might do in one of the workshops coming up. It's a really quick one that takes a couple of minutes. Interests. What are you interested in? Of course, related to the role, but also I just was in that meeting that I had this morning. It was just fascinating. I've worked with this individual on and off for maybe 5 years, and it's just been so rewarding to be involved in this person's process. And just at the very end of the conversation, he said, "Oh, I'm about to launch my passion project." And today, the climate that we're in, you turn a passion project, my ears just like tingle with fabulousness, because you turn a passion turn those interests into so much of the research is around doing, it sounds all very trite, do what you love, but the more you do what you enjoy and enjoy doing, you'll go down all these beautiful rabbit holes and nice rabbit holes, rather than, and you will find that if you are honest to yourself in terms of pursuing your your interests and your work-related interests rather than chasing the dollar. And again, it's very easy, and that sounds like a very privileged thing to say, and you've got to balance that. Sometimes, you've got to go and get a part-time job, you have to do a hustle, sometimes you have to do 3 jobs. But the more you can stay authentic to your own vision, your higher self, into the long term, your well-being, and there's a lot of research into all of this. And I think I probably mentioned this even before the recording went on. So very, very current, looking at purpose and meaning. And again, we're in difficult economic times, absolutely. But and are things going to be challenging for a period of time? Yes. However, as I was saying to those in the room, that it's actually a great time because there's so much change happening. There are opportunities that weren't there. So and there's all these existing gaps, particularly in with the casualization of the workforce. So we can get quite fixated on it needs to, I need this full-time job, and it needs to be in down the road, and it needs to have super, and it needs to have this, rather than, oh well, perhaps it could be 2 jobs, and that doesn't have to be exhausting. It could be 3 days doing this and 2 days doing that, and so, or it could be 4 and 1. So we having that openness, continuing to think about what you want to bring, what gives you, what really lights you up. And I say that because even in a session at the very end, when I saw this gentleman talk about his passion project, his face just, like, it was only for a couple of minutes, I was coming in here, and he saved it till the end. His face just lit up. And so when things light us up, it gives us energy. And when we've got energy, and again, there's science that, we're that openness, that curiosity, then we're more engaged to learn, we're more positive, we build better relationships, etc., etc. When we're feeling better, we connect better with others. When we connect better with others, we have more opportunities, etc. So I've been talking in here about celebrating uniqueness, and with working with our postgraduate students, the value, and employers have been slow. There has been, but they're getting there. Employers have been slow to recognise, as we know, women, our migrants, and those with disabilities. Employers have had quotas and things, but slowly, and we talk about it, we teach it, the value of diversity, but great organizations are finally starting to genuinely recruit for diversity rather than it be for quotas around disability or women, etc. There's a long way to go, but certainly we are on the cusp of changes. So once you know what is your unique story, perhaps you've lived and studied abroad, you've all going to have what we call transferable employability skills, problem solving, communication, teamwork. And so when you know, but also you've got an individual story of things that you have learnt, situations you've overcome. I referred to the word resilience, and as I said, it was actually resilience was one of the key words when I reflect on that really interesting article that I read yesterday. So then once you know, okay, well, this is who I am. I've got some gaps here, and here. I need to develop this. But perhaps that's around your technical skills. And I was saying to the people in the room is that employers employ people that they like and that they can connect with. Now, your role as a graduate heading out, or soon to be, or whenever it is that you graduate is looking at, well, what do I have to offer, and then how does that fit with the existing landscape? And the thing about the employment landscape, like never, ever before, or certainly not in my time of working in this space, is that has the landscape changed so quickly? So, for example, we had 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we had, huge numbers of people being unemployed. At the early days of the pandemic, people in roles that had never lost, pilots, for example. Then here along come 2 years later, there are gaps everywhere in the employment landscape. They don't have enough people in tourism roles. They don't have enough people in the airline industry. They don't have enough people in hospitality. They don't have enough trainers. They don't have enough educators. They don't actually have enough casuals in academia for the first time in decades. So, and that has flipped from because the world's opening up again. So the landscape is changing much more quickly than ever before. And so with that change, your role is to, I guess, or the way to really manage your professional life through this is to keep little mini upskilling, keep that openness, keep being willing to grow, willing to learn, willing to take risks, and being able to flow with, okay, I thought we were going this way, but now these opportunities are coming this way and I've got this opportunity. And flowing with, again, it might sound like a bit of a hippie, but there's actually research around flow, and going, so you're continuously checking in and you're looking at the opportunities in that landscape and coming out of a what we call a fixed mindset. And so when I again refer back to that article about, there was older people that weren't able to, they were finishing their working lives at, 50. And some of the observation was that some of those individuals had a very fixed mindset about what they would or wouldn't do. And sometimes if you're suddenly made redundant, then you go and work for less than but it's only for a period of time. And so, for example, pilots that survived and that will, that did continue to work, older male pilots, they went and did whatever they could do during that time. And sometimes you have to put, you put ego, but it's something that's, it's ever changing, rather than it's this fixed state of, we're taught that our careers are we're taught that it's this fixed state that when I finish uni, I'll do this and then it'll look like that. And then I'll be earning this at this time. And the reality is it's the combination of good experience, just like life, really. It's a combination of good experiences and challenging experiences and surprising experiences. And it's again that our capacity to kind of go, whoa, ouch, that hurt. All right, go on this way. So while you're looking at all these opportunities out there, we were talking in here about, the preparation. So one of our students in the class isn't finishing for a couple of years, but I love meeting students at all stages. So if you were like doing an undergraduate degree or a coursework degree, you'd be year 1, year 2, year 3. But if you're doing PhDs, and it may be any variation of. But there's going to be an early stage of your PhD period, a middle stage, and an end stage, which could fit with year 1, year 2, year 3, however many years that it equates to in between. So my point is that even if you are in the early stages of your PhD, you can start to, and you may not know yet, like, where it's all heading, but you can just start some little bits of dabbling in terms of, your speciality is in, is in mobility. If it was health, just as an example, then you can just start to look at all of, the occupations where around, rehab and osteopathy, and not that you're going to, retrain as a, but research in those areas, et cetera, and anything associated with mobility. So that would be age and disability. And so then you start to see the scope of what studying something like mobility, and it might be mobility in children of with a disability, whatever, but the scope of that, then there are associations, and then there's community project, there's community, and then there's families, and then there's the government that will be the NDIS. So there are roles. So when you can look at it, even start to think about anything associated with that word of mobility and working, you literally could type a word like that in, you'll see the scope. And I think what can happen is with a PhD, sometimes the focus can get quite narrow in that it's academia or it's research, and then there can be other stories that play out in terms of not being able to get into other sectors of employment, with the notion of studying for a period of time. So if you're early days, you can and even if you're popping out, and not even if it's by coursework, these are the ways that for all of you, there are volunteering. It's a fantastic time on the planet to be able to engage in volunteering. But think about it in really practical terms. You guys have got, I'm sure have got, families and pets and aging parents and, whatever, partners and part-time jobs and dance classes and all sorts of things. I'm incredibly humbled by the amount of things that people have going on in their lives. So you approach it from the perspective of what can I realistically do in terms of because volunteering is an amazing way to meet people, etc. Then you do a couple of hours a week or a couple of hours a month, and then when you have more time, and so you could, and there are pre-pandemic, it was such a tight employment market. There was a period of time, genuinely, it's about, or not that we're necessarily at the end of the pandemic, who knows where we're at with the pandemic, but three and a half approximately years ago, I had situations where I couldn't get, students were struggling even to get voluntary roles. So things have changed enormously. There is lots and lots of part-time work. It's a much more buoyant, and it will be not that I know, and again, things change but certainly for the next couple of years, there is still going to be an abundance of opportunities. It's not necessarily going to look like we thought it was going to look, but there will continue to be opportunities.
Sorry, Beck.
Yes.
If I could just chime in, practically, practically, how would you utilize this RAVE approach, especially early on in your like my academic career right now? I'm in my first year of my PhD.
Yes.
How would you practically utilize it? Would you schedule activities as part of your daily routine to just try and improve in those areas?
So thank you. Yeah, great question. So again, I think because in your instance, in your case, what I first think about is how much time you have, and then I would also, coming back here, I think your case is actually really ideal. It's not that even people are here at the end. I think whenever you're here and we get to have contact with you is amazing. Because if you're here at the end, then we can still help, your cover letter, your resume, and all that sort of stuff. But I think you're at a really exciting time Roy, because you can pretty much play around with all of this stuff. So, and I'd encourage, particularly with those that are doing a PhD. So think about like, so our lives, our careers, as I said, like they touch our communities, our homes and our cars and our fun and purpose and meaning, all those sorts of things. So I think about a few things. I think about, well, what, if you've got a side hustle, how could I dabble a little, you know, you like drumming, and you'd like to teach other people, like you're a drummer and you'd like to teach other people drumming, and you know, start to explore that. Or you love dancing just for fun and you go and take some dance classes, and it might be like, well, why would I take dance classing to help me with my PhD? Because you're going to meet people, and then the more people you know, the more people help people who help people. And so, but also, if I come back to that point around kind of well-being, we've all been isolated. Everything associated with mental health is that we know that human beings are best when they are connected to others, and it's through connection that we build relationships, and that's where opportunities. And we don't know what, without sounding like a complete hippie, is we don't know what the universe has for us in store unless we kind of get out there and have a go. So I would think about how much time you have, how much time, yeah, and if you can, or what, you know, what you, or you look at it like you can do it on a week by week or a month, like depending on knowing what you've got coming up, how many responsibility, you know, if you've got part-time work, how much time do you have, and then what you would like to do more of in your life. There's an amazing tool, and there's a variation of, I don't know if she's still offering, I don't know if anybody's heard of Mel Robbins. She's just doing this, she's an American motivational speaker. She's amazing. She's done TED Talks, and just Google her. She's awesome.
Is she Tony Robbins' wife?
Oh, I don't think so.
Ah, I kind of thought that connection, but maybe not.
Oh, she's got a free, it's called Taking Control. I think it's called Take Control. She's got a free little mini course that she's doing. It may have closed, but interestingly enough, she's using this tool. She's using a tool, but she's just using it and it's her own tool or someone else's tool, which is based on, similar to, if you look up something called the Wheel of Life, and I've got one that I use, but it's through a coach, and it would look probably like promoting somebody's business, but you can find the Wheel of Life on there. And so the Wheel of Life gets you to look at all the areas of your life, and you rank where, so back to your point, Roy, you rank, and you can do it in association with your career. You rank how you're going in all those areas of your life. So perhaps you've realized that you're not engaging in community, like you give your score a score out of 1 to 10. How much am I engaged with my local or regional community? And you think, oh, okay, well, and you think about it, you think, oh, actually, I'm not doing anything. That might be a 0 or a 2. And then you go, well, okay, but I'll look after my elderly mother, and I'm studying part-time, and I've got children, and da-da-da-da-da. So you go, okay, but I'd love to be engaged a little bit more in community. So then you look at what's going on in your local council, or you look at, you know, your local, you know, here in the Tweed, there's a local paper that comes up, and there's, you know, there's all sorts of little clubs and things. And so that's one, you know, so that would be community. So then you look at, and that would be your volunteering, just as one way. Or it might be that, so when you do the Wheel of Life, or if you do Mel Robbins' version of, she gets you to look at all the areas of your life, and you can do it around your working life. And she gets you to do it like a tank in your car. And you score yourself if you've got a full tank, a half tank, and then you have to think about, well, what? Yeah, it's a fun one. I've never done it in that form before, but it's quite revealing, very confronting. So so back to your question, Roy, is to look at So it might be, you might be like, oh, well, okay, I probably need to just start building my professional identity and I haven't got a LinkedIn yet. So you might just put a basic LinkedIn up there and then come along to, not going to sort of hear about, well, I'm not selling you anything, it's all for free, but you might want to come along to the LinkedIn workshop. So that would be taking it's taking really small steps towards building something bigger and moving towards that goal of what you'd like to achieve by increasing your opportunities out there. Or it might be something like simply, and again, this might be relevant for you, you know, like you've got 10 minutes in your day, back to, you know, always question about how much time. And you're like, well, I'm doing this PhD in you know, finance or in, I don't know, community development or something, and like I don't even know what jobs are out there. And so here's a website that's interesting. Oh, ethical. Sorry, I'm going to delete that one. It's ethical. It's ethical jobs. Sorry, ethicaljobs.com. So you might want to just, when you've got, so I would say, think about how much time you have and you know, what your priorities are, and then what you, ethicaljobs.com. And then sometimes you'll find that you have more time, and think about your energy. So I generally won't talk too much about myself, but I I mentioned the pro bono, and I love doing them. And you know, like all of us do different things, you know, different responsibilities, different times. And I just had this period of time, so I've backed up. You know, I give away a little bit of my morning to stay engaged and to assist these. It's relatively open. It's not something that I market, but I have the ongoing people that I mentor through there. But I try to balance it around, you know, thinking back to your question, Roy, around about what else you have going on. So you might have, you've got your big, you've got different milestones with your PhD. So when you perhaps achieve a big milestone, you've got that like, okay, that's done, and you've got some time to breathe, and you've got that energetic space. And then you know, you go take dance classes or whatever it is. So then you keep moving forward and building your relationships, but building those opportunities to meet more people, but also to kind of to grow and to learn, and also to stay motivated, you know, to get up every day. Does that help, Roy?
Beck, does that also help when you're in an interview situation and you've got something that you can write on your resume that you're interested in or you're currently volunteering in? Does it also give you an avenue that makes you seem more human to your employer, because they know not only do you obviously have your own home and your things that happen within you, but it also helps you seem a bit more either community minded or it gives them something to give you, like something to talk about, another avenue to explore.
Absolutely. Yes. And also, I mean, you start doing a little bit of whatever it is that you can do based on the time that you have, and you put it up in your LinkedIn, you put it in your resume, and you can tailor it to I mean, in this instance, the volunteering that I'm doing is directly connected, but it isn't always. But you can still pull out the employability skills.
Okay.
Gained from doing that, you know, whether it's working on a community garden and you might be in education, but you're working with young people, you know, there's young people there, and you know, you have that chance to be with them in an informal setting, so you get to hear what's happening with their mental health or hear what their issues are. So you find a way to
make sense.
So
you draw those connections as well, like you would write that in your resume. See, that's what I struggle with. I struggle with the self-promotion. So it feels arrogant, like that's just not who I am. And I'm sitting there just going, oh, God, like, why would I be putting that stuff in? Because it sounds like I'm just blowing smoke at my own nose. Like, you know.
Oh,
not my thing.
And I think that you're absolutely not alone. And I think I was saying actually in a class yesterday that culturally in Australia, we're not taught to talk about like ourselves, you know, in America, other American, perhaps parts of Europe, but predominantly American culture. But in Australia, we're criticized, you know, it's the tall poppy, you know, syndrome. And I think it's finding, and it takes it's finding that place where you can find that middle ground where you're happy with, you know, learning to really celebrate what you have done and knowing that you've still got areas to grow. And that's it's a process. And you know, it's easy for me to say that because I'm in that space, but it's certainly, it's an ongoing thing because you make mistakes and it doesn't go well or this, you know, and so it's that learning that comes from that. And also getting some feedback, like have a go at it, then the careers team or do it through, and maybe initially put it through the machine. So go for broke. Yeah, I've done that. And then if you feel uncomfortable, put it through the machine. Yeah. So, and that can tell you, you know.
Okay.
It is naturally a very uncomfortable process of self-promotion. Some people do it really well. You've probably got all your friends, you all got friends that, you know, they do their Instagram and, you know, and they do, you know, but it is naturally, for most people, it's pretty awkward. And one of the things that is done most poorly is, aside from the cover letter, is that first question when you go into the interview. Tell us about, people just go,
right, yes.
So I'll talk about that. I'll just we didn't have a break. Oh my God, should we just keep going and just finish up?
I'm loving your work, so I'm happy as long as Julia and Roy are happy.
We'll power through it. But I always say, like, I love people to come in because it's what you ask that shares, that adds to these, you know. So it has been a different sort of session, but I think hopefully it's been helpful for at least for you guys, and I'm sure that there'll be themes. So really all I was talking about here was, and this actually goes back to your point, Roy, again, about having a multi-pronged approach, and really having a multi-pronged approach to all that you do associated with your working life, is that, you know, when you feel ready and you get clearer about which professional, so for example, in your case, Tanya, joining those professional associations, it's a little bit, just as an example, and I could talk for half an hour on all of each of these, it's a little bit of a you've got to decide again whether the cost and the cost benefit analysis, having a professional membership, when you join some of those professions and at what level you join them at, it's a lot of hoops to jump through, but it can also it gives you that pride once you've jumped through those hoops to join professional associations. You know, as a professional member, you've got to balance up, and you also get to put it on your resume. So then if you do put it on your resume, then you're perceived as, you know, there's a positive perception of having that membership. You've got to balance up the cost of those memberships. One of mine's $400. So
wow.
Yeah, and you've got to you balance up where you're at in your the real value of so I'm not sure what the education one balance up. Some of them you could probably still get a student membership, but anyway, they can be of great benefit. And then there's also lots of networking events and lots of you know, webinars, but the on the flip side of that is you can get a lot of things. You can still often you can get a student membership, but you can also access some of those things a period after that through their website. So with all of these things, and again, it's back to Roy's great point, I think it's about balance. So and certainly certainly in terms of, you know, all of us as human beings are trying to get that balance, and sometimes the balance is a different combination of things at different times. So yeah, I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it. Seems like we're doing I'm going to be doing a really detailed cover letter and resume workshop coming up. So I think it's interesting that a lot of it's come around about just the broader general success things. And this comes back to the point that I mentioned earlier, is that hidden job market. So for you, particularly for professions, very specific fields like, move that out of the way there. Julia, in your case, the hidden job market for you will be even more hidden than, say, someone like Tanya's profession, where it's, you know, it's a bigger, and same with Roy, depending on Roy's. What's your speciality in health, Roy?
Pharmacist.
Okay, so yeah, so again, even yours would be pharmacy, but again, I mean, pharmacy, you've got research, and then you've got retail, and then you've got practitioners, and then you've got, I mean, there's, yeah. So, but again, so yours is environmental science, isn't it, Julia? Yeah. So yours,
yeah, it's part of that faculty. It's specific, like for plants, but it doesn't really matter.
Yeah. So so LinkedIn, and through any of that university network, yours is going to be smaller and tighter. But the great thing is, once you get in there, then you're in this beautiful little pot of people, different to perhaps initially, depending on where Roy goes and Tanya goes. Yours is a really, but it's very, how do I put it? Once you're in, you're in. And so, and then because it is that tighter, and it's about building your profile in that tighter field. I mean, if you then go out to government, or, you know, I mean, still, but it's a speciality, and so your approach will be, there'll be similarities in how you're going to approach it, but networking in that tight network, and having those conversations, any chance to chat to a professor, and anybody in your those corridor chats for you, Julia, are and then asking all of those, your supervisor's supervisor, yeah, and then who they're working with, yeah, on what projects, and then getting in as a research assistant, university, I mean, depending on what, whether it's, you know, in the university, whatever, wherever you're going, but they're finer lines perhaps and lots of little lines, as opposed to Tanya's, where it's there's challenges in both, yeah, there's complexity, you know, but some of the approach is similar, if that makes sense. But the hidden, what I was thinking, the hidden job market applies, and this will be the case for you, I imagine, Roy, too, as you get further down that hidden job market. I think in education, there are, as far as I know, there is a demand in absolutely every single element of education.
It's finding the good ones. That's the issue. Like, people are leaving for a reason. And that's what worries me.
Yeah, and fair call. And I think that's a really, really important point to address, because if you know that going in, so that's where, coming back to that, one of those earlier slides around opportunity awareness. And the great thing is that and in what we call information interviewing. So really that's like, sorry, the wrong slide up there. I wanted to show you that slide again, because it's almost like that, you know, I talked about doing the virtual coffee chat. There's a process called information interviewing, which is essentially the same thing. So you're you're asking information from someone associated with getting a job, and you can do that through, you could do it through, like, there'll be, the good thing about media and social media today is that you can find out a lot of stuff online that you couldn't find out beforehand. But chatting to, going to any environment where you're going to have access to those people to talk to them about, you know, why they left the profession, or if they've left the profession, you probably know why. Yeah. So looking at people with, I mean, I was going to say looking at the people with longevity with a particular, but that doesn't necessarily always imply that it's been a great road.
Yeah.
Then also, probably what you'll find in education is that if somebody has had longevity with it, that they have been through all sorts of phases of times, where as different administrators, and then it, because it's around funding and then restructure, that sometimes those that have been in the profession, it's gone well, yeah, and then a new team, and then it's restructured, and then, you know, there's different, yeah. So it's going to be hard, but it comes back to, and this is a really, really important, that relates to just about it. Again, it comes back to doing your research, your networking, all that sort of thing, but also being very, very clear about your values. So if it's like work well-being, which should be probably values for all of us, but, you know, we make different times and different priorities, or if it's around work-life balance, and you know that, then you're going to be looking for employers that have hybrid work situations, that have flexible work, that are strong supporters of women in the work, yeah? And so you're not always going to be able to find out that information. But if you get very clear before you start and hold those values really strongly around what's ethical, yeah? So that if you do start with an employer and they don't honour that, you get out quickly, and you trust that I will, yeah. You trust yourself in that, and it's a bit of a luxury and a bit of a privilege, but also I guess it's also around short-term and long-term health. Yeah, that, you know, one of the things that we don't look at in terms of careers and holistic well-being is stress. And so, you know, where people will and the cost of stress, yeah, on our finances, that when you stay in a work situation that is toxic, or, you know, you're overloaded, then you lose 2 years of work because you become sick, right? It's a false economy, rather than quickly getting out of that. And it's hard because not everybody has the cash flow to be able to go, okay, I'm going to go out of work for 3 months to then find something that's better for my well-being. But if you can, ideally you do as much research as you can, particularly if you know that the field is known for, you know, particular behaviours around, you know, not best back, you know, but around lack of balance, around work well-being, who is doing it well, yeah, and being really clear that when I come across, and boundaries around, really clear about, because also we have control around some of that, and we let our own boundaries down, like we'll say, oh, okay, just tonight I'm going to work, whereas you know that you'd already committed that time to your family. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So we also play a role, and this is an interesting, I think, well, not interesting point, but it's a point around career success, which comes to this, and I would put it into a top tip, is that the thing about success in the world that we're in, it requires a very different strategy to what we would have had, you know, in our parents' generation, in that you go into an employer, they look after you, you know, we put that in inverted commas, you sit back and you work hard towards getting that next promotion, right? And someone looks after you as you go, yeah? They pay your super, they help you, your mentor, you know, superficially, yeah?
Yeah.
But the world of work at the moment is, and will be, absolutely, I don't believe, there's no sign that any of this will change, is that traditional model will never ever return.
Okay.
And so it's self-efficacy, and it's an internal locus of control, which means that we drive, and that we get into a situation in our workplace that is, that you're working with people, maybe everybody's going through redundancies and you're not. Okay, well, what do? Okay, so I have to make sure that I'm only in the office for shorter periods of time. I give people as much love and care, but I walk away and I, whatever. Yeah. But it's what we're not taught, I still don't think even as younger people are taught, that it is our role to manage our own career. And if we rely on what happens every day of the week, is that we rely on an institution and an organisation, whether it's New South Wales Health, whether it's Hewlett Packard, or whoever the employer is, or a small business, that what I have learned in recent and through the observation and training, whatever, is that the organisation will look after the organisation. Right?
Yeah, and that's what's changed, isn't it? They
Right.
no longer are working for the person; they're working for the dollar.
That's right. Yeah. So, and it will, because as we move into tougher times, they will continue to get sharper about looking after the organisation. So what that requires for us as individuals in terms of our well-being and managing and having a healthy, happy working life is that however you approach your working life from day to day, is that you're like your own small business of yourself.
Okay.
You are your own product, yeah? And you are driving it. You go into that organisation, but you're in charge of you. And because there's that reliance, they're going to pay my sick pay and they're going to pay my super and they're going to look after me. And of course they, that they do, but we get lulled into thinking they will look after my career. They will not look after your career. I don't mean it in a sad way.
No, but it's important to know.
Yeah, they look after the organisation. And we must look after. So, for example, there are services and systems and support that they'll provide around, depending on organisation, around mentoring and training and education and leave. But you will still be your own product. And so for you as a product to survive into the remainder of your working life, your longevity and success relies on your own control. There will be all sorts of things you can't control. Absolutely. You get your dream job and they're like, woohoo, I'm in. And then I had a situation, had a couple of, where people are in and then literally something has changed. And so knowing that change may or may come, and knowing that you're okay, you've got the skill and you've already got tons of the skills already. It's the technical skills that you're just going to, and I'm making it sound very superficial, but a huge percentage of the skills that you already have about showing up and being resilient and looking after your team members and communicating and solving problems, yeah? And then you've got everything that you've studied at university. You've already got a huge suite of what is required, and employers are very happy to teach the technical skills, what they are looking for, and more so that every evidence is there is those people with the resilience and that capacity to self-manage, yeah. And to be able to make decisions and to take risks and to be innovative and to be creative. Those things are increasing even more so into everything I can see at the moment, into the landscape that we're going in, because people are going to be moving across organizations and industries much more quickly. And even in 2 years, I am absolutely blown away with how much. So I work in 3 or 4 different organizations. How much has changed in those organizations in a window this big, that periods of 10 years are like old machines, yeah, nothing moving very fast, right? And what they're saying is that because of technology and the world itself, that pace will go even more quickly. Right. So what that means is that it's about your employability skills, then going into a job, learning the technical skills, grab those, keep your well-being great, and move somewhere else. Does that make sense?
So no longer are we're not going to be there in the same job for life. They're like, it's just not a thing anymore. And if it's not working for us, get out, like, because it will impact us long term.
Yeah, I mean, you've got to look at and I guess what they say about you balance that around, you don't want to move like every 6 months, or notice somebody's resume. Somebody asked to connect with him, just as an example. Somebody asked to connect with me, and I kind of knew the name, and anyway, and I looked, and it started this business that was, obviously his reason for connecting with me. And then I looked at, like, there was this like and it was 7 months, 6 months, 3 months, and then he'd started this business, and I was like, no. It was just too many red flags all in a period, and it wasn't. And I didn't know I knew the person's name, and there was just a kind of a gut, like, something not right there. Yeah. So there's a bit of a debate about younger, like really young people, about moving every but certainly movement and mobility. You want to, I would say, a year. Okay. Yeah, we wouldn't want to, and it wouldn't matter if you have a year and then 6 months, but you probably don't want, and I only use that example because it was bang, 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 bang. It wouldn't matter if you had 18 months and 3 months, and but if you haven't made a year in any of then over an extended period of time, it might look a little bit like, and this can be a criticism or a query around younger people, is that, I'm not saying you're old, but
it's really fine.
very young generation, is that they're actually criticized for moving too quickly. Yeah. And so I think it's about finding that balance, but I think above all, it's about turning towards what you enjoy and what lights you up and gives you energy, and keeping the focus on that. And so observing what you do in your work that gives you that energy, because when you create energy, you can create more energy. So, and then balancing that with, you're always going to have tasks and things that you don't, but drawing your own attention to that early on. Like, I wish that somebody perhaps, 20 years ago had said, like, I was quite fortunate. It happened naturally anyway, but it would have been even more exciting had somebody had said to me, like, follow more of what you, it sounds so trite. They do say, do what you love. Yeah. But there's actual science around what happens with our engagement when we do what we enjoy, and that feeds into our success, because we build better relationships, we have more positive experiences, we have another positive experience, we meet more people, and so this beautiful flow and world opens up of opportunity by engaging with what, it's not to say that we want to live our life by just doing everything that we want to do, yeah, and it's all pretty, but learning and what literally what lights you up, and following that, because when work can be, it's tiring, it can be hard, it can be hard, you get up, yeah, and so if we're not straight out of school, we want to make sure that we've got well-being and a good, happy, healthy working life into the future, yeah, where you get to work for as long as you can. And in order to, because we are going to be self-sustaining to a certain degree around, we're looking after your health. I mean, you'll be supported by, superannuation and those sorts of things. The control is still with us around how, like, your employer can say, I've got psychologists for you, I've got, these and these and these. But if you yourself are not managing your own sense of career success, and you stay in an environment for 3 years that you probably should have left a year ago, then that's your decision making. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. And I guess for me, I mean, I'm a bit older, so I'm in my 40s. This will be a second career for me. I guess I still feel that loyalty, and if I'm going to go in, I'm going to give it myself. Yep. And I guess that's what you're saying. Like, that has changed now, because I'm not going to be necessarily rewarded for giving all of myself for the job or for the career. It'll just burn myself out.
I think I think you've raised a really, really good point there, because I think that if you give so same in Julia's case and in Roy's case, you give all that you can to your client, so if Julia's working on a project, she gives it all, to all of the recipient, but you keep your sense with the receiver of your work, if that makes sense. And of course you remain loyal to that organization, absolutely, but you give the energy to the work itself rather than to the organization behind it, if that makes sense. So if you're working with young people, or you're working with disability, or you're working, in Julie's case, you'd be working with the plants and give that energy there. Does that make sense? Rather than, so you're working with human beings, you're giving that energy to those human beings and to, that work that you're doing. Keep that energy absolutely there. Not with the institution, because the institution may come in and go, well, we don't need Tanya and Julia anymore because we've done this, and it's not personal, it feels personal. Ouch. And you've been working for this education with your whole heart and soul attached to that school or program or whatever. And then and your identity is there. Your identity is in the purpose and the meaning, rather than in the institution. Does that make sense?
So don't just be a yes person to every committee, whatever it is they're asking, because it's all the extra stuff, isn't it, that gets heavy.
And yours is going to be you're all going to have different sorts of challenges. Just let me ask a question, Julia. Are you going into, is it academia that the role you're looking at?
Well, yeah, currently that would be a postdoc position in academia.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so, and what were you thinking about, where were you thinking about heading into, Roy?
Well, for me, it's mainly pharmaceutical regulation, so regulatory affairs. That's what I specialize in, so that kind of area. Okay,
cool. So it would be would it be government employers potentially?
It could be government, or it could be even pharmaceutical manufacturers that are trying to get their product regulated.
Okay, cool. So the same in Julia's case, academia, into manufacturers, and in yours as in is it schools? Yeah,
you'd imagine so, or department, depending on where that be.
You still have choices around how you manage yourself in those roles, and the choices around those boundaries of which you set. You absolutely need to be seen. And what I have observed is you need to be seen to be contributing. And you need to be is contribution. And I think that's probably the easy, contributing to, but you will not necessarily, if you turn up to every meeting of every day, that's not necessarily going to be career success, right? You're likely to get pissed off, tired, burnt out, and when we're tired and we're burnt out and we're cranky and resentful, we don't show up that well. And so, and people feel that. And then so that doesn't necessarily present you in the best light when they go, well, should I offer this opportunity to this person or this person? And so I've seen many people who have been real worker bees, technical skills. They get those technical skills down and they work really hard on those technical skills, but they forget to be warm and friendly. Well, not that, well, maybe that doesn't come naturally to them, right?
Yeah.
And then what happens is those technical people don't often do quite so well in their careers, and they can get really cranky, and they get more bitter and more resentful of those that are getting the technical skills down, but they're also, and it's just about how you play the game, but you play the game with authenticity and with integrity, yeah, but you still have to play the game, and there's a game that has to be played. So what can happen is that those that focus too much on getting down all those technical skills and getting everything, learning every single system and every single process, and depends on the nature of the job, but forgets to have a chat to someone in the corridor, forgets to walk somebody through the car park and have a chat to somebody in the car park, is too tired and cross to talk to people in the lift, doesn't go to morning tea because they get that all down.
So still the interpersonal stuff. You've still got to do the little personal things, the human things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that's again what comes back to, because you still need to be out, like if you want to get into that next role, you need to be able to connect with that next person to get into that next position, to create those opportunities. And that's how it comes. And you don't necessarily need to know every single way that system for marking attendance, whatever it is, but you don't need to know that it works backwards and sideways. You need to know it in order to do the job. But what can happen is people can get really caught in doing brilliantly, and then can get quite disgruntled that Tanya or Julia got promoted, and I didn't.
Yeah.
And that you don't understand that work is about relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And it's about trust, and it's about relationships at every level. That brings us right to 11 o'clock. So as Julia is, so you might like to, because you are right at that tail end, you might like to touch base with the careers team and get them have you applied for a few positions?
No, only that one so far.
Okay,
it's cool. a tricky position at the moment. I just need to think about what I want to do, if I want to stay here or go back to Germany, and so many different things to consider at the moment.
Okay, beautiful. Well, look, the reason I mentioned offering the extra sessions, I put my email address in there. It's a complimentary thing that we do. So if you need, you can talk to myself. If you want to unpack that, myself, I have my own mentors, I have my own peeps that I go, what do you think? Say it. And you find your own answer. And you can almost, like I've done it, so it like comes out, you're like, and they're like, yeah, you got that. Just by being able to articulate those worries, concerns, opportunities, excitement, or whatever it is that's going on. So please, you're most welcome to contact me, but also the careers team are there as well. It's on the last slide here. They are amazing. I'd recommend my colleague. They're all fabulous, but Susie's the one that is normally involved in our just go to the end here. Oops, sorry. She's involved in the all bits that you missed, but I did a variation.
Sorry, Beck, we hijacked your talk terribly today.
No, it's absolutely, because I'm going to go into each of these. Oh, that's the website that that's for the careers team there. What's it? There's an old note in there about Jobs Club. I'm going to go into, I've got another 3 weeks. So we're going to do LinkedIn, we're going to do resumes, we're going to do cover letters. We are going to do interviews. So it's an overall, so it's great because we actually, it's about, this session was actually about success. And the keys to success, I think the ultimate key to success is about that self-management, and learning about yourself and learning about what's out there and what you can contribute. And that is the in the world that we're in, if you know who you are, and you know what you love and enjoy to do, what you could contribute to the world that you're in, and then you also know where you've got areas where you need to grow, and you make a little plan, like Roy was saying about just asking, you know, perhaps it's more community, perhaps it's a part-time job, perhaps it's perhaps it's doing a MOOC. There's these are MOOCs are massive online classrooms. They now just be really careful with them. I think edX is still doing so it might be about some micro learning. Great way. I've done MOOCs with edX and I've done MOOCs with Coursera, but as subscription goes, just be very careful. So Coursera, so MOOCs really quickly are the massive online classrooms, and they are fabulous for micro-credentialing, and they are run by universities all over the planet. So they're, you know, Harvard, Stanford, Sydney University, universities all over the world. And you can go into these are just 2 that I have used, edX and Coursera. What they used to do is they used to charge, so just be really careful, because I had an experience with Coursera. They used to you used to be able to do it for free, and then to get the certificate you used to pay like a nominal amount. It was about $100 and something. But what they do now is that edX have, I don't think edX is doing it, but be very careful of Coursera, but you can still just check your subscription, and if you to join, if you don't want the certificate, you can still do the course, and you can still say that you have completed it. You just won't physically have the certificate, and the certificate's just an electronic certificate. But it's a great way. So for example, if you were particularly interested in neurodiverse individuals, there'll be like a 4-week training of 20 something hours, and you do it in your own time. You've got a certain period that, again, because I guess that people have found out, and that they've got thousands of people all over the world, and it's an interesting business model. They probably, you know, got people like myself that joined 3 years ago, and then they're like, right, yeah. But certainly very, 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 LinkedIn also does some good credentialing. So if you had probably a little harder in your field, Julia, but there'd still be sort of broader topics that you could do that would bolster an application, and it demonstrates that additional willingness, you know, like having a professional association on your resume, doing volunteering. It shows that commitment to your profession. And also, if you want to have a speciality, like, for example, working with neurodiverse individuals, or autism, or whatever it is, that if there was a specific, that when you go into the workplace, then you become the expert, you know, that starts to build that. And so then when there's issues around, behaviors to do with, that's like, oh, we'll talk to Julia or we'll talk to Tanya, that you become that person. And knowledge is power. So in an organized, and you don't want to miss power, you don't want to misuse power, but knowledge is power.
So it also helps you become employable, but it shows your employee that you've actually done some background work to make yourself more employable from doing these sorts of courses.
Yeah, and it's also different. You want to stand out from. We begun this session by talking about how to stand out from the crowd, right? And you go into a school, just as an example. I have no idea what you're planning to do, but you're going into a school, for example, where they, and you've done mental health first aid training, and you've also volunteer. You might volunteer once a week, but you still got at the YMCA. And then in that YMCA, in your little blurb, you say, dealing with kids, and I know that these are the sorts of issues, So then when they get your application, they got 2 applications there. You've both got fabulous grades, both studied at good universities, both got similar, and then they go, but Tanya she's got mental health first aid. We know that we've got, just about any school on the planet would appreciate that, but we know we've got some great, big issues, around socioeconomic issues and cost of living that's, impacting mental health. Just about everything on the planet at the moment is no doubt impacting mental health. That will separate you, or even after the interview, they're like, they love you both. Yeah. They've got one job, and then they're like, but she's just got that little bit extra in this or that. Yeah. Okay. And again, this comes back to Roy. They're things that that you can start to, even now, and even in Julia's, you can start. Okay, they're not necessarily going to help in Julia's case immediately, but there are. She could get a job in the next couple of weeks, or start working at the local, just as an example, community centre, and she starts next week, and she's done 1 shift there. You'll put it on your resume, yeah. And maybe she's going to do some additional, I don't know. She enrolls in a course before she puts in that in the next application. So suddenly, 2 little moves, 2 micro moves, changes, and then she also joins the Professional Plant Association of Australia. I have no idea what it is. I have no idea. Yeah,
but that all counts. All of those little things count, and they're the things we should be putting in there, right?
3 little things that, when you've got everybody that's got a PhD and they've all done research and they've all got similar sorts of research papers, I'm just making it up as I go, but yeah, if we were comparing apples for apples, but then we've just got someone that's gone a little bit further, and they're engaging a little bit more deeply, and they're micro moves, really. I mean, you can enroll in a micro credentialing course, and once you enroll, you just put expected completion date 2009, it is May. Yeah. So if you're you're going to go on and do some other postgraduate study, and like you haven't done enough, as soon as you enroll, put it on your resume, and then you leverage off that.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. Okay. So all those little things that I'm not doing. Yeah.
Oh, but I think that's the thing, is that I'm sure, like, just about everybody on the planet you're doing your best, aren't you? And doing your best these days is different to what it was before the pandemic, wasn't it? Yeah. And everybody, and so I have no doubt, whatever you are doing every day, you're doing the best that you can do. And also, we don't know about, that's why you come to a session like this. Somebody says, oh, I could be volunteering 2 hours a week, and suddenly I've got a quarter of a page on my resume that I can go to town with.
Yeah.
One day a week. And it can be half a day. It can be a morning. It could be Saturday nights at the YMCA. And if you think about, probably for most people, how much time we can spend, just checking out, basically, a bit of Instagram or whatever it is, a little Facebook or what, we just check out for a few hours. You can see it when it tells you your screen time. Yeah. So if we can, and we all need time to check out, you know, but there's that place, isn't it, where we could be using that time a little bit more effectively. And and again, that comes back to Roy's point about how would you decide? And you try those tools. If you can get onto Mel Robbins, it's only a short. She's amazing. She's written a New York Times bestseller. I really like her a lot because she's very open about what has happened. Like, she's really openly talks that, I mean, she's one of the most coveted speakers on the planet, and she talks about having a breakdown after COVID or in COVID. I'm like, oh, I love that. Keep it real. Yeah, because you know, if she's not real with other people, she's not real with herself. Yeah. But also she's practicing what she preaches, and I think that's so that tool, it may have closed. There's some, of course, you know, they're all about selling as well. I hold that with two hands. There's some other, you know, of course you can sign and pay $150, but if you can if you can see that. But if you can't, the Wheel of Life is a really handy tool to help you see where your career is at, and then how you can make these little tweaks.
No, that's some really good advice. Thanks. Yeah.
Because, you know, again, our career is also the food that we eat. And so it's about having a morning routine, you know, so there can be, you know, and sometimes maybe you've dropped your morning routine. Maybe you were doing some meditation. We know that the science around meditation and well-being for health, which affects our capacity to work, but also affects our decision making and the types of decisions we make. So that's why I've been using the Wheel of Life, or a version of it, for a long time, and I use it myself because careers, as I said, are so tender that they affect every aspect of our lives. And it's our responsibility to kind of keep checking back in and going, okay, I'm tired because I'm doing too much of that or too little, you know, not socializing or not in the community, or too much. I think these days too much of, you know, not having boundaries with, you know, whatever else, you know, it is that you do. All right, beautiful. Speaking of, I'm going to be back here next week. It has been so beautiful. It's been really lovely having a small group of you in here to just talk about, you know, what's going on and what you guys are doing. I hope it's been helpful for you.
Thank you. Yes.
I know that by being here and by sharing, and I really, really value the sharing that you've done. It's helped other people. It will help other people. And again, you know, I find it quite interesting. That's what it's all about. Yeah. That work is actually, even if you're a mechanic, you're helping people get home, aren't you? You're helping them get to work. Yeah. You're helping them get to their aging parents. They're helping their kids get to school. You're fixing someone's hair. You're a hairdresser. You make them feel good for the day. It's all about, and that is, and I find that really beautiful and exciting, that work, when we see work about purpose and meaning, then, and you're all going into, you know, the planet, pharmaceuticals, incredibly important for we wouldn't be here, would we? So, and then education. So they all contribute. So it's been really beautiful. And I hope, any final questions before we go, Roy, anything that you need?
I think Royce and something in the chat as well.
Chat. And Julia,
he actually asked a question. I read it, but I'm not sure if there's any advice I can give at the moment. I'll think about it. For me, it was actually a thing that nobody ever really told me how a normal academic career looks like. So that was one of my main issues, that I just have no idea. Like, I just jumped into this PhD without really knowing what's happening afterwards, and then have to figure it out now. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you can find out by kind of asking around, but it's something that I wish I would have kind of done sooner, maybe.
I guess for me, Roy, as I said, second careering for me. So I'm going to become an ag teacher. I was working in agriculture. I'm from a farm. It's kind of just part of my life. I'm in my 40s and I cannot work physically hard doing what I was doing before anymore. So I decided to do my Master of Teaching and now become an ag teacher because I feel like I'm still giving and doing ag, but in a slightly different way. So that's why I went down the road that I did. And it took a long time to work it out. And I guess lots of people just kept on saying to me, oh, you're a teacher. And I'm like, no. So I guess enough of those reminders made me actually go, oh, maybe I should be doing this. So little subtle things all the time. But yeah, I guess it's just, and knowing, like what Beck was saying, knowing about what you value and who you are as a person helps you to follow and find the things that you like to do, which makes it easier to do the stuff that you will be doing for many years to come.
And I just want to, sorry, just saying that I'm not sure how much I'll be able to join in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I couldn't find much information about if it's every week now
I was going to ask the same.
Yeah.
More weeks.
3 more. Okay, same time.
It's all recorded. Yeah, it's all recorded though, Julia. So you're most welcome to dive into it. But what I was going to say, Roy, the strongest suggestion, just in case I don't see you, but I hope to see you again face to face, is that what I would say for academia, and only because I have seen it over an extended period of time, is you need to be seen. And that means what I have seen is that those that do a PhD and they don't come into the office and they don't hang around corridors and they don't go to the staff meetings and they don't act every day as best they can, as like they're already in the job. If you want to get into academia, you hang around, you get yourself as many times as you can possibly manage to be seen on campus or in the environment where you want to work. That is how you get known, because the alternative is, because PhD, it's a solo journey, but you got your peeps, is that those that go off into the ether, I've not seen them then get roles in the organization. But what I have seen is those that sit in the office and they just hang around in corridors and they be beautifully annoying. And they ask questions and they're just seen, so that when something comes up and there's an RA position or there's a teaching gig or something else that comes up, they go Roy straight away. They don't think of anybody else, and there'll be 29 other PhD students and they will not be thought of. They will immediately go Roy, because you are everywhere and they cannot not know that you're the person for the job. That is absolutely my 100, and I could not give you a stronger tip, because I've been in and out of university hallways for a lot, and I've watched the PhD students, and I've watched them over a period of time, and I've watched the ones that have got jobs, and I've watched the ones that haven't. The ones that haven't got jobs, because they've never been seen. No one's ever seen them. There you go.
Can I also say on that as well, Roy, I was working in ag research as well. The people who are nice to the admin staff, who are nice to the cleaners, who say hello, they are the people that other people say, what do you know of this person? And they'll either give you a glowing report or they will tell you exactly what they think of you. So it's always helpful to be nice to everybody and make the effort to say hi and thank you, because those little things are noticed very regularly.
And they're called, you have decision makers and you have decision influencers, called decision influencers. And so if the secretary, you walk out, you have your interview and you're rude to the secretary or whatever, and then he comes out or she comes out and they've just interviewed you, she's going to say, I'm sorry, sir, but he was rude to me or she was rude to me. All right. And then they may have already decided they love you. So it's such a beautiful, thank you for sharing that. That's humanity too, isn't it? Like being good to others is a good way to be, isn't it? For life, for well-being. So it's so true, because at the end of uni, you're going to have the security guards, you're going to have the admin team, you're going to have the guys in the coffee shop. All of those people, everybody, it's a little community, and all those people know each other, and they all, I mean, not necessarily they're gossiping about you or whatever, but it's a community. And so beautiful. Thank you. That's a lovely tip. There we go. All right. Take good care. I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys whenever I see you. And Julia, my email address is there. The careers team are there as well. So please reach out. See how you go. Good luck, and also reach out to your professor.
All right. Thanks a lot. It was really helpful.
Thanks, guys.
All right. See
Bye.
you. Bye, Roy. See you.
Bye.